Hi, guys.
I think everyone's muted.
Okay.
Just go ahead and rock and roll.
Sure
Get that
thing.
last one.
Okay. So today's webinar is about freedom within limits. I was thinking that it would be helpful for it to be just slightly interactive. We can do either the chat or being able to talk. Because I think it's one of those phrases that in Montessori, if you're reading any articles or if you are seeing anything about Montessori, you've heard it multiple times, but you may not know exactly what it means or how to actually have it play out in the home or in the classroom. So if you want to either use the chat or just be able to, kind of say, like, what do you think it means by having freedom within limits? I know that sometimes people might think that it means that the children are kind of free to do whatever they want to do, or that we in the classroom that, they aren't really told no very much, or that they are, just kind of given free rein. And I think that that's kind of a misconception of what happens in Montessori. I think I've heard, from, parents throughout the years and stuff, that they were thinking that it meant, that they're kind of free to do what they want. Someone said sticking to certain boundaries and allowing them to explore within those boundaries. It's very good. Yes. So I think what it is that we give the limits of how to, another one, the ability to be independent and to make good choices, so long as those decisions are not harmful to them or others. Yes, that's another great one. Within the classroom and then also within the home, we really try to live by kind of three different tenets. The three different tenets are respect to yourself, respect to others, and then respect to the environment. And so a lot of those just kind of different rules or kind of ways that you would think that they should act at home or act in the classroom can kind of be boiled down to one of those three. Oh, we got another one. Encouraging them to be independent while also encouraging them to make good choices. Yes. And I think that the freedom within limits, being able to set up the limits of how the behavior should be, or how to, something like we use our walking feet in the classroom, or we use our walking feet at home, helps them to be able to become independent, because children love boundaries. They might not seem like they love boundaries, but they really, really crave those boundaries, because what they're their behavior is communication. And what their behavior is saying is, where is this acceptable? Where is something not acceptable? And whenever they have those consistent boundaries of each time they run, or each time, even if with the younger toddlers, or even like the infants, each time they, are hitting your body or anything like that, they are told that that's not okay, or they are told, you may keep your hands off, or you may keep your walking feet. Then they understand, okay, so that's the boundary. That's what, as long as I'm within this parameter, we're all good. And that this is how to be able to navigate through our space. So I think what one of the nice things is that we were having, talking about having different types of limits that we were talking about, is the respect for oneself, the respect for others, and the respect for the environment. We really try not to have too many rules inside the classroom, or have too many rules, inside the home, because A, it's a lot for the little ones to remember. And B, I think a lot of them can just be boiled down to one of those three tenets. But we have a lot of freedoms as well. So some of the main freedoms that we have are the freedom to move. So in the classroom, they're able to move around in the classroom. They're able to, kind of, if a child is what we like to call roaming, where they haven't quite picked a work out, but they are still looking around or observing, they're allowed to do that. Some children, they just need to move around. In the home, it could be that, they're kind of just walking around and touching different things, as long as it's safe for them. And that's okay. That they have different ways that they can move. If you guys have a playroom or a bigger space, and that's okay for them to be able to do somersaults in that area or to be able to jump in that area, then that's fine too. They also have a freedom of choice. So a really big thing that I find is giving the children choices, and giving those children, when you give the children choices, obviously being okay with both of those choices. One of the classic things for in the toddlers, like as they're becoming that 1.5 to 2-year-old, is they start getting opinions on what they want to wear. And so they're really wanting to, pick out what they want to wear. And of course, what do they really want? They, of course, they're going to want the t-shirt and the shorts when it's 30 degrees outside or something like that. So the limit could be that you are only giving them the options of weather appropriate clothing, whether that be that you pick out about 2 or 3 outfits and lay them on the bed for them. And then they get to pick what shirt and what pants they want to wear. And that gets to be their freedom of choice. Or if you have the child who is going through all the drawers and stuff like that, maybe kind of switching the items that are in the drawers to make sure that they are weather specific, so that, in January, we don't have tank tops available to them. Or, letting them know that a tank top gets paired with a shirt. I do know that a lot of times in primary, as they get their sense of style, I see a lot of girls and a lot of boys too, in like their summer shirts or their summer dresses, but then they have the long sleeve underneath and they have the leggings underneath and they have all the different kind of patterns that they like, because, you can tell that they were the ones that genuinely got to pick out their outfits. Especially as they're getting to that 2-year-old age and they're wanting to become independent, and it's, oh, me do it, I do it. These freedoms really help them feel like they've made a choice. And I think that that's really helpful for that young age, and even in the primary age as well, because they really want to have that sense of not necessarily control, but they want to have a say in their life. They're starting to understand that their words have power, and, their words can either have power of, making life really tough for us or really working with us. And so we really apply the freedom within limits to be able to use that power for good. I really, a lot of times too, is really helpful if you need to redirect a child. So say, it's time for home. I'm sure it's, whether it be time to clean up or bath time, when you're having to transition from different activities, it's really easy to kind of phrase things as, would you like to clean up yourself, or would you like me to help you? Or would you like to pick up the red blocks first, or would you like to pick up the blue? And, at that point, if they say green, hey, all right, fine, let's go with the green. And then sometimes there are times where you only want them to have 2 choices. And so a lot of times I just will reiterate and say, I understand that may be what you want to do. So if it's, would you like to brush your teeth in, now or in 5 minutes? And they say 30 minutes. I'm like, I understand you would love to have 30 minutes, but I can give you 1 minute, or I can give you now, or I can give you 5 minutes. Which would you like? A lot of times them being able to have that choice, again, it really does help. It helps them to feel like they've had a say in their day. And, just helps them, feel like empowered. And that's how we teach them how to become independent. Another one is freedom of time. I do know that it's a little different in the classroom than at home. I try to tell, sometimes I'll tell my parents, like, it's a little easier in the classroom because I literally have all day. I literally, if we're not putting our shoes on right now, I've got all day for us to put our shoes on. Well, at least until 5 p.m. But I understand being at home, it's completely different, having to make certain appointments, having to, just get out of the house and do all those things. But we really do try to give them some freedom of time. If you notice that putting shoes on becomes a difficult task, maybe being able to put shoes on earlier and then being able to play, kind of being able to find something else to play with first instead of having the shoes come on or be the last things to put on. And then also freedom of time can also be thought of as giving them time to do the things that they like. So in the classroom, if I have a child who is working on, say, a puzzle or working with, water pouring or dishwashing, and they're washing the same dish for 10 minutes, that is absolutely fine for me. I'm not taking into account how efficient they are. It's not about the speed or the efficiency at which they're doing the task. It's how much they want to be engaged in that task. And I think that it's also kind of translating it to home could be that sometimes if you see them struggling a little bit with a puzzle piece, especially that young toddler, and they haven't quite vocalized that they're frustrated yet, to just kind of try to hold off a little bit before intervening. I think that really does help. Obviously, a toddler will tell you when they're frustrated. They absolutely will let you know. And in that case, absolutely do help them. But I think that there is really something to be said for, it's so easy for us as parents to see, oh, they just need to rotate that piece just 90 degrees and it'll fit. And so it's so easy for us to kind of jump in and to do it. But at the same point, if we allow them to tell us that they're frustrated or allow them to continue, and, if they don't seem frustrated, they're just continuing to concentrate, then really it helps them to not only build their sense of concentration, but then this sense of, oh my gosh, I did it, is so much stronger because they were the ones that got to do it. There's also the freedom to repeat. So in the classroom, we would say that obviously they can kind of continue to pick the same work over and over again. Generally, when I give a child a lesson and it really clicks with them, they'll want to continue doing it. So you might see pictures of them working with the same thing for, 1 to 2 weeks in a row, or they have a favorite material that they would continue to go back to. Some of the materials in my classroom I call like the water cooler materials, as far as these are kind of the sense of safe and secure things. Like, I know exactly how to do these things. And because I know exactly how to do these things, after I do something that I was not quite secure about or is a little new, a little challenging to me, now this is something that is relaxing to me and that I would like to do. Just kind of how, back when everyone used to be in an office, you would just kind of hang out at the water cooler, be able to talk to your friends and, just kind of catch up. That this sometimes certain works that are very repetitive and very simple are things that they really like to do and continue. I know that in the toddler world, it's very much, I know you were saying that Grayson, like, still, months and months of, well, he does is he lines up his trucks at home and he continues to do that. And so, Aimee's not going to go in there and constantly say, okay, well, let's work with it a different way. Let's try and do it this way because.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because it actually goes along the lines of one of the respect for choices, and just kind of it goes back to the workshop that I gave on Tuesday about being prepared as the adult, or
Yes.
just understanding what the child is going through and what they're experiencing, to allow that freedom, but making sure you're setting the proper limits. So for example, the other evening, Grayson took out all of his cars, all of them. And if you were with me on Tuesday, I told you that's a lot. It's like 30 plus little vehicles of all sizes. He was in his own little world. There was no space on our sofa to sit, but he was so focused and concentrated that me, being a Montessori educator, I'm used to seeing. I love it. That's just, it was something that I'm so familiar with. But across the kitchen, here comes my darling husband. Grayson, don't take out all your cars. I looked at my dear husband with glaring eyes. I'm like, don't you interrupt this. I was like, he's fine. He's not hurting anybody. He's not destroying anything. Why would you interrupt that? Because it's more work for us as the adult in the long run. Hey, we've got to help you clean all of this up. So that's where I think his headspace was at the time when he was observing, look at this huge mess that he's doing. But sure enough, we have to have that confidence in our children that they're capable of having that freedom. And eventually, after consistency, they know the limit. They know when to stop. They know that they have to clean up and put things away when they're done. So just allowing those, those different choices of allowing him to, do what he's interested in.
Yeah.
And just giving them a little bit of grace and time to explore that. So that's why the key of observation is really important too. If, for instance, he takes out everything and he doesn't clean up after 20, 25 vehicles, then the next time, maybe you can, revisit that and say, hey, Grayson, that's a lot. Can you just choose 5 and then slowly progress to more vehicles? It sounds like a lot of work. And it kind of is. It definitely takes practice. And everybody needs to be, pretty consistent with it. But that's just kind of really understanding that freedom within limits. So
yeah. Another one is the freedom to communicate. And so obviously it's very, very apparent in the primary classroom because we are hearing all kinds of problems, all kinds of, interactions going on. He said, she said, all these different big emotions that are happening. But letting each child be heard and letting each child be able to tell their part of the story. And then also we really help them to try to put into words when they are upset, especially, with the toddlers, when they're, crying, we really want to validate their feelings. And, I hear you, you're sad, or saying like, are you sad? In my classroom, a lot of times I'll say, are you sad or are you mad? Because both kind of produce the same response. And then they kind of think about it and then they'll tell me. And, some children I'll, I kind of with some children that if I say like, oh, did you not sleep well at night? Or, did we have trouble at home? And, sometimes it was just that, they didn't get the breakfast that they wanted. And so that then because they didn't get the breakfast that they wanted, that now, they're a little more emotional coming into the class. But really allowing them to be able to communicate. And, for the youngest ones, being able to give them those words of saying, oh, you're sad. I see tears coming down your eyes. Let's get a tissue for your tears and let's find something that we can do, let's find a way that we can help, or let's find something else that we can work on. I think that really does help them. It helps them to validate those feelings. And then also to get the correct vocabulary. And then we also have the freedom to make mistakes. So, there's a lot of spilling, a lot of pouring things on the floor accidentally, or sometimes not so accidentally. And really using those natural consequences are great. I think that there's no reason that I need to, say, oh my gosh, look at this mess, like you made a huge mess on the floor. Now we have to do this. And a lot of times it's like, oh my, do you think you need a mop? or, oh, I do see the big spill. Let's get a towel. Or do you know where the towels are? And so a lot of times that kind of just shows them the natural consequences are wonderful because they know, they know, oh, okay, that made a mess. Sometimes with the youngest toddlers, they're really just seeing what happens when they pour water from a cup onto the floor. Even in the infant classroom, they love doing that. It's, like a little science experiment for them. Obviously, the tiniest ones can't, we can't give them a mop and tell them to wipe everything up, but we can give them a little towel to be able to start teaching them how to wipe it up. Or sometimes it means that the cup goes away for just a little bit and then we can reintroduce it with less water. And so being able to make those mistakes really does kind of help them to learn. And also making those mistakes kind of also, falls under, kind of giving them that time to figure things out. A lot of the things like puzzles and things like some other things in the primary classroom, they have what's called a control of error, which means that it's built in a way that something just doesn't look right or something physically won't fit correctly until it's done the correct way. So they understand if the puzzle piece doesn't fit, that it's not there yet. And it's not a wrong thing. It's, oh, it looks like you might need help. Do you need help? For my oldest children, when they start getting that like that little frustrated, and so I can just kind of pass by and say, oh, do you need some help? You can just say, I need some help, please. And the same thing in the toddler classroom too, is, obviously they get their little frustration on, but being able to really use those natural consequences really helps them. And it takes the shame out of it. It's not really anything shameful. It's not that they did something wrong. It's just, okay, so now I've learned that this is what happens. And, even if it is something that's kind of fun for them, is to dump it out and then to have to clean it up. It either is they're going to get sick of it because they have to keep cleaning it up. Or I do have some children that they like to do that. And hey, guess what? That's their work. Because I have this one big box of different colored beads. So there's 10 different, there's like a unit bead, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10 beads, and each one is a different color. And I would say there's probably about 15 in each little box. There's a big box and they're sectioned into the little boxes so that you can kind of sort them in the right colors. It's really used for multiplication. But I have a young child who that child will dump it. And I just kind of look over and I say, oh, it's time to clean it up. And that's that child's work, because it becomes sorting for that child. It's a young child who doesn't know multiplication at all. But what the child sees is they see the colors and they know where the colors belong. They know to match the light colors together, and that the different sized little individual boxes within the large box, which number belongs where. And that's 20 minutes of sorting.
Yeah. I think that brings up, I think that's a prime example of literally freedom within limits.
Yeah.
Of having that child purposefully stare you dead in the eyes, dump all of those materials out on the floor. They're like, look at what I'm doing. But as Kendall, as that prepared adult, she looks at it. She's like, okay, trial and error, natural consequences. You have to clean that up. And I think it's consistent enough that the child knows exactly what to do with it. Now, if he dumped it and started, or chucking some of them across the classroom, okay, whoa, that's the limit. So I think that's a prime example of allowing that child that freedom of dumping it, observing, seeing what he's going to do next, and then allowing him to continue with that freedom as long as it's not harming himself, harming others, or harming the materials. So I think that's a really good example.
I think so. There's some really good quotes that Maria Montessori has also said about freedom within limits that I think are really, kind of poignant. She has said, let us leave the life free to develop within the limits of the good, and let us observe this inner life developing. This is the whole of our mission. And so, it really kind of points to everything that we've been talking about, of we're setting up the parameters of really how to be a good person. When we make mistakes, we correct them. When we try really, really hard and we, have successes through that. We treat people with respect and they respect us. And so when they are working through things and when they are figuring all of these things out, when we have these limits of, keeping, just kind of allowing them to figure things out, but still within the parameters of, how to be a good human, then they're coming to the conclusion themselves, rather than it being us just constantly saying, oh, no, good kids don't do that. Or good kids only do this, which is really a lot deeper of a connection with that. I know that I wanted to kind of pause and kind of see if maybe you guys have any situations that you may be thinking of personally, that we can kind of go over, as far as maybe different situations that you guys may have encountered at home that you may want advice on, or some validation on, or anything like that. You can feel free to do it either through chat or be able to speak if you would like.
I'll jump in because I've got something. I guess I'm happy for Eleanor to make a mess and to clean it up. We've certainly had our share of that at home. Our problem, I think, that we've had most recently is that she still requires or kind of demands like our constant interaction to play. And kind of it takes a lot for her to kind of get into an independent, focused state of mind. Like, what kind of things do you suggest or do you do to try to just like encourage them to be independent and not need mom and dad to be close by?
So I do notice that this is kind of a common topic that especially parents of only children will have, because these children have grown up with, one or two parents in the household and a constant sense of entertainment. And so this is kind of what they would like, especially at home or at school. They have their friends. That's not, really an issue, but at home, that's the source of communication. So what I really suggest, it helps a little now that she's a little older and getting into that 3-year-old age group, it is a little easier to introduce kind of what I would call, or what's called parallel play, where you can kind of say, okay, mommy and daddy, or mommy or daddy, whichever one is going to work with this, and Eleanor can work with this over here. And so, I think that it's helpful that you're still there, because sometimes the connection is just wanting to be there with you. Or so if you pick something for you to do, and then she can pick something for her to do, that does help a little bit. Now she may be wanting to, super interact, or, still wanting to say like, oh, like showing you things. I guess the question is, do you find that she's wanting you to interact in the play, or that she's wanting to show you more? Because there's
she wants us to interact. She wants us to like, she if anything, she gets into that mode that you kind of mentioned earlier, where she wants to do the same thing over and over, but she wants us to do the same thing over and over with her. And I mean, there's only so many times I can be a drag.
I think a good thing, Wayne, to do with that is provide yourself as the adult. You and Rebecca need to set your own limit. Eleanor, mom and dad will do this 2 times. And you both have to stick to that 2 times. You can't do 3, otherwise she'll keep pushing it. We're going to do this 2 times. And after 2 times, Eleanor will do this, and daddy's going to do this, and mommy's going to do that. So you really have to lay it out. And I think the hardest thing is, no, she's not going to want that. But getting over that hump of agreement from her is going to be the most difficult part. Having her accept that, hey, okay, fine, you're really telling me no right now. I think that's going to be the hardest thing for her, and for us as the parents, is to have to hear the resistance on her part, that no, I said I want to keep doing this, but you're telling me no. So just getting over that hump of, listen, this is what I said, and this is what we're going to do. This is our limit. let's move on. So before you know it, after doing that, just a couple days in a row, she's going to slowly be like, okay, wow, they're serious. They're only going to repeat this, 2 times with me. And then I have to, be a little bit more solo in my play. So I think really setting that type of limit for yourselves as the adult, I think will really help a lot.
That makes sense. That makes sense. We found that to be really helpful for bedtimes. That's basically what we've had to do. We've had to say only 2 books and only 2 songs, and that's it. But yeah.
Once she understands that consistency plays throughout the day through all events, then she'll grasp it. It'll be a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, we got another one. How to help improve selective listening and communication. For example, wanting her to get ready to go out the door or sit down to eat, but not getting a verbal response or eye contact. What's really helpful with that is, kind of asking for a verbal response or asking for, eye contact. A lot of times too is if I call a child's name twice, then definitely the 3rd time I'm going over and I'm tapping that child on the shoulder. And I'm making it known, like, I called your name 2 times. Did you not hear it? And, so because sometimes they really are engaged in work and that they don't hear it with the selective listening and communication. And then sometimes, we're kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt as far as them either not saying anything or, not giving you eye contact, because obviously it's a lot harder to ignore you when you're right there. And then, kind of saying, you may say, yes, mommy, or yes, daddy, something like that, and saying it's time to do this. And that's, again, where we have our freedom within limits of giving the 2 choices of, would you like to do this now, or would you like to do this in 2 minutes? Or would you like to put your shoes on first, or would you like to, turn off the light, whatever it may be. And I think that kind of really helps with the selective hearing. It really helps to actually really physically approach the child. And to tap them on the shoulder, they'll kind of look at you. If they still aren't looking at you, then saying, excuse me, I'm calling your name. You may look me in the eyes. And then being able to communicate that way.
Yeah. I think, she's giving 2 real life situations that I'm sure everybody here that's participating has experienced one way or another. Trying to get out the door without the accompaniment of your little person, or trying to get a meal done, or trying to get bath time done.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we have to stress the importance of, again, we're still the adult here. As much freedom and as much as we want to encourage that freedom within limits, we still have to remember that we're the adult, and sometimes in life, especially here outside of our Montessori school, we got to get things done. We got to go and make sure we're at our 8:45 meeting or something like that. So that's when we have to remember that we do have to step in. For example, if we have to get out the door in the morning, hi, Grayson, come on, we got to go. He just doesn't look at me. He's only 2, mind you. He doesn't even look at me in the eye. I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the watch. Grayson, we have to go. That's number 2 for me. And I always say on number 3, Grayson, you can start walking to me, or I'm going to come pick you up. And he says, okay, you're not going to touch me. He's like, you're not picking me up because I'm going to scream. So then he starts slowly moseying on over. So you kind of, you do as much as difficult as it can be sometimes, especially if you have multiple children, you just got to pick them up and you've got to go. This is our limit right now. I have to physically just help escort you because real life is happening. We really do have to go. So you also have to remember that, like I said, we encourage that freedom, but life happens. And trust me, I'm experiencing it now as, a mom outside of here. And it's the lovely things that we say in these workshops, I know sometimes doesn't work in real life. So that's why I definitely do want to try and give, some of the more realistic options and solutions to things like this. Or if you don't get them to sit with you at dinner, that's fine. Grayson, your plate is here. Yeah, your plate is here. Mine is here. I'm going to eat. And when I'm done, we're cleaning it all up. And then sure enough, I've got, half my plate done. Grayson, look, mommy's plate is almost finished. I'm ready to clean up your food. Do you want to eat? Sometimes he'll say yes, sometimes he'll say no. And unfortunately, there have been already, again, he's only 2, but there have been already some instances where I'm like, Grayson, dinner's done. Are you eating now? And he'll still say no. And I'm like, all right, we're done. And I'll just put his plate away. And sometimes, again, he's okay. And sometimes he loses it. I'm like, but listen, this is a limit that I put on you. But of course, I make sure he'll get like a yogurt or something, before he goes to bed. But I want to instill that, hey, this is the limit in the house right now. And this is something that I would like you to follow. So really just kind of putting your foot firmly down and setting those boundaries at home, I think are really important.
Lynn has also said that he's found a lot of success recently posing the question, do you need help doing blank? So as soon as they ask, do you need help putting on your shoes? Then his daughter will usually insist on doing it by herself. It doesn't always work, but definitely something.
Yeah.
We aim for like a 65%.
Right.
When we get a 65%, then we basically consider that a successful tactic. But yeah, that's also a really good tactic to use, because especially at this age, they want to be so independent. That's one of those Montessori tenets. And I'm sure you are blessing us and cursing us that we have created such an independent child out of your children. And so they always want to do it. And so just like how Aimee was saying, like, either I'm going to pick you up or you're going to do it yourself, they're majority of the time going to choose to do it themselves. And when they say, okay, pick me up, then all right, let's go.
That's the limit I gave you, so I got to follow through with it. So yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions or any other things for